Imagine an empire so vast, so powerful, it stretched across continents, commanded immense armies, and possessed wealth beyond comprehension. They were the undisputed masters of their world, seemingly invincible. But what if I told you that this entire colossal structure built over centuries of conquest and cunning was brought to its knees not by a foreign army, not by a natural disaster, but by a single catastrophic decision made by its own leader? This isn't just a story from a fantasy novel. This is the real, cautionary tale of an empire that had it all and lost everything because of one fatal choice. A choice so monumental that its echoes still serve as a stark warning to leaders today. This is the story of the Khwarezmian Empire, a powerhouse that dominated Central Asia in the early 13th century. Under their leader, Shah Ala ad-Din Muhammad II, they controlled vast territories, including modern-day Iran, Uzbekistan, and Afghanistan. Their cities, like Samarkand and Bukhara, were glittering centers of commerce and culture, sitting at the heart of the bustling Silk Road. They had a formidable army, numbering in the hundreds of thousands, and their treasury was overflowing with gold and jewels. From the outside, they were the very definition of power and stability. To challenge them was to invite certain doom, or so it seemed. Far to the east, a new force was rising from the vast, windswept steppes of Mongolia. A man named Temujin had united the warring Mongol tribes and was now known by a new title, Genghis Khan. He had forged his people into the most disciplined and terrifying military machine the world had ever seen. But in the year 1218, Genghis Khan wasn't looking for a fight with the Khwarezmians. He was looking for a business partner. The Mongols, despite their military prowess, desired the incredible goods that flowed through the Khwarezmian lands. Trade was the goal, not war. So, Genghis Khan sent a massive trade caravan to the Khwarezmian city of Otrar. This wasn't just any caravan. It was a diplomatic mission, carrying 500 camels laden with precious metals, fine silks, and valuable jades. It was accompanied by around 450 merchants and a personal envoy from the great Khan himself. The message was clear. We are the rulers of the lands of the rising sun, and you are the rulers of the lands of the setting sun. Let us conclude a firm treaty of friendship and peace. It was an offer of mutual prosperity, a golden opportunity to link the eastern and western ends of the world's most lucrative trade network. This is where our story reaches its critical turning point. The caravan arrived at Otrar, a frontier city governed by a man named Inal-Huk. He was the Shah's uncle, and he was deeply suspicious of the Mongols. Were these merchants actually spies? Was this a trick? Driven by greed, paranoia, or perhaps a misguided sense of authority, Inal-Huk made a decision that would alter the course of history. He accused the Mongol merchants of espionage, seized their priceless goods, and had every single one of them executed. Only one camel driver managed to escape the massacre, racing back across the desert to deliver the horrifying news to Genghis Khan. Now, put yourself in Genghis Khan's shoes. This was a direct, bloody insult. His offer of peace had been met with slaughter. His personal envoys were dead. His people were murdered. Yet even then, the Mongol leader chose the path of diplomacy one last time. He sent a second mission, this time with 3 ambassadors, to demand that the Shah hand over the governor of Otrar for punishment. The Shah was now faced with the most important decision of his life. He could sacrifice his uncle, appease the enraged Khan, and save his empire from a conflict it was not prepared for. He could admit the mistake and de-escalate the situation. But Shah Muhammad, blinded by arrogance, made the single worst choice imaginable. He refused to hand over his governor. And to add the ultimate insult to this catastrophic injury, he did something unforgivable. He had the chief Mongol ambassador executed, and, in an act of supreme contempt, had the beards of the other 2 ambassadors shaved off before sending them back to Genghis Khan. In Mongol culture, a man's beard was a symbol of his honor. Shaving it was a profound humiliation. The message was now unmistakable. There would be no negotiation. There would be no peace. The Shah had not just rejected diplomacy. He had declared war in the most insulting way possible. When the humiliated ambassadors returned and Genghis Khan learned of his envoy's fate, his reaction was one of cold, silent fury. He is said to have climbed a sacred mountain, prayed for 3 days, and vowed to unleash a vengeance so terrible that the world would never forget it. The trade mission was forgotten. The offer of peace was a distant memory. The Khwarezmian Empire, in its hubris, had just signed its own death warrant. The great Khan mobilized his entire empire for war. This was no longer about territory or wealth. This was personal. This was about retribution. What followed was one of the most brutal and devastating invasions in human history. In 1219, Genghis Khan unleashed his Mongol hordes, a force of over 100,000 highly disciplined, battle-hardened warriors. They were masters of siege warfare, psychological tactics, and lightning-fast cavalry movements. The Khwarezmian army, despite being larger on paper, was scattered across different cities, lacked unified command, and was completely unprepared for the Mongol way of war. The Mongols descended like a storm. The city of Otrar, where the initial massacre took place, was besieged for months. When it finally fell, the governor Inalhuk, the man who started it all, was captured. His fate was a chilling testament to Mongol justice. They reportedly executed him by pouring molten silver into his eyes and ears, a symbolic punishment for his greed. But that was just the beginning. The Mongol tide swept across the empire, leaving a trail of absolute destruction. The magnificent cities of Bokhara and Samarkand, jewels of the Islamic world, were sacked and burned to the ground. Their libraries, filled with priceless knowledge, were destroyed. Their populations were systematically massacred. Accounts from the time speak of rivers running red with blood and mountains made of human bones. The scale of the devastation was apocalyptic. The Mongols didn't just conquer. They erased. They methodically destroyed the Khanats, the sophisticated underground irrigation systems that had sustained life in the arid region for centuries, turning fertile farmlands back into desert. And what of Shah Muhammad, the ruler whose arrogance had unleashed this hell on his own people? He became a hunted man. He fled from city to city, pursued relentlessly by a detachment of elite Mongol cavalry. His vast army had evaporated. His wealth was useless. His authority was gone. He was a king with no kingdom, a commander with no soldiers. His flight ended on a small, desolate island in the Caspian Sea, where he died alone, destitute, and riddled with disease, a broken man haunted by the ghost of his empire. In just 2 years, the mighty Khwarezmian Empire, once a global superpower, had been utterly and completely annihilated. It ceased to exist. Millions were dead, and a once thriving civilization was reduced to rubble and dust. So, what is the lesson here? The fall of the Khwarezmian Empire is a timeless warning about the dangers of arrogance, miscalculation, and the failure of diplomacy. Shah Muhammad held the fate of millions in his hands. He was given not one, but 2 chances to choose peace and prosperity. Instead, he chose pride and confrontation, underestimating his opponent and overestimating his own strength. His single decision to execute a group of merchants, followed by the even more foolish decision to kill an ambassador, set in motion a chain of events that didn't just lead to a military defeat, but to the complete obliteration of his entire civilization. It's a story that reminds us that no matter how powerful you are, no empire is truly invincible. A single moment of hubris, a single bad decision, can unravel centuries of success. History is filled with these cautionary tales, but few are as stark or as devastating as the story of the empire that chose pride over pragmatism and paid the ultimate price. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating and chilling as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the pivotal moments that shaped our world. Let me know in the comments what other historical blunders you'd like to see covered. See you in the next video.